We can all agree that the music industry is second only to cringy YouTube clickbait in terms of overreactions, right? This is no big insider secret. The music business breeds touchy individuals in the form of delicate songwriters and demanding divas, in large part because the whole messed up system is full of testy, downright petulant children dressed up in suits and ties. In turn, this has made the public hate the idea of the music industry. Yes, we all have our own favorite artists and we all continue to download their music and attend their concerts, but that doesn't mean we're willing to put our hard-earned money in the pockets of this big, dumb business. And that's the problem, in a nutshell, for both sides. The music industry now feels cheated out of all of that sweet middleman cash they were so used to funneling in, and the buying public now feels it's their duty to swindle the swindlers in a vague, unfocused form of reparations. This has led to literally hundreds of lawsuits, instigated by and against those at the top of the music industry food chain, and some of them are downright insane. I'm Will for WhatCulture, and here are the 8 dumbest lawsuits in the history of the music industry. 8. LimeWire sued for $75 trillion. LimeWire was one of the many popular peer-to-peer file-sharing services in the early part of the millennium. Hashtag only 90s kids will remember. Much like their contemporary Napster, they'd find themselves in a whole butt-ton of legal troubles. The Recording Industry Association of America wanted to penalize the company for their participation as a cog in the free music machine, and so they whipped out their calculators, determined a sufficient figure to represent the funds lost by the artist because of this service, and then they hit multiply, the number 1, and let their finger rest on the 0 button until they'd finished reading A Tale of Two Cities. Napster was sued for $20 billion, but this time the RIAA came to a thoughtful decision to go absolutely insane and demanded LimeWire pay $75 trillion, or more money than is available in the free world. Naturally, the judge says that seems a bit harsh and proceeded to drop the total possible damages to a few $1 billion. Still, that's a lot of dough to cough up just because a bunch of 13-year-olds didn't want to pay for their copies of Creed's My Own Prison. Luckily, a jury of peers ultimately ruled that the then defunct service should pay an amount that doesn't sound like a Bond villain's ransom and settled the bill for $105 million. 7. The RIAA sues a deceased grandmother. In keeping with the theme of the RIAA being a little overzealous, here's a fun story about a little old lady who was sued for downloading 700 songs on a computer that she didn't own or know how to use. An extra fun fact, this lady had died before the lawsuit even got underway. It was demanded that the 83-year-old Gertrude Walton, the best old lady name ever, pay for her illegal downloading of music under the alias Smitten Kitten. However, it was going to be a little problem for old Gertie to get the RIAA their money, seeing as she was buried in a cemetery and thus unable to make it to the bank to withdraw the appropriate funds. The RIAA has a long and sordid history of going after the elderly, probably because they're the least likely to understand all the technological mumbo-jumbo in the legal documents, but this one takes the cake. Obviously, they were laughed out of court and were forced to drop the case. Number 6. Artists sued for using silence. Numerous lawsuits are filed each year because someone infringed on someone else's work. This sample wasn't fully authorized by the license holder for use in this song, etc., etc. But it's rare that a musician is sued for their song's lack of similar sounds, or rather, lack of sound at all. Mike Batt, leader of the band The Planets, was sued for infringing on a classical composition by John Cage called 433, which is literally 4 minutes and 33 seconds of complete silence. Batt's song, A 1 Minute of Silence, was considered suspect because it also happened to be a song composed of absolutely nothing. Batt was such a stand-up guy that he'd even credited Cage with co-writing his piece, giving respect to Cage's version of silence because true artists are weird as hell. The Cage estate responded to his kind gesture by trying to sue the pants off him. Ultimately, they settled this out of court with Batt donating an undisclosed 6-figure sum to the John Cage Trust. According to Batt, the gigantic ransom donation was given in recognition of his own personal respect for John Cage, and his brave and sometimes outrageous approach to artistic experimentation in music. 5. P. Diddy sued for supposedly causing the 9/11 attacks. The tragic events of September 11th, 2001 are nothing to joke about. It represents one of the worst moments of terrorism in recent world history. That being said, it's worth noting that P. Diddy was not involved with these terrorist attacks. He just wasn't, okay? I just want to be on the same page with this one. Terrific. But one lady, Valerie Joyce Wilson Turks, refuses to believe this. In a lawsuit filed in 2011, she demanded a settlement of $1 trillion for a multitude of reasons. Turks explains that Diddy knocked down the WTC and then came and knocked my children down. He also set her up to be on disability and disabled baby, probably from knocking them down. Oh, and he also stole a casino poker chip worth well over $1 zillion. So technically, Turks wasn't suing him just because of his involvement with the attacks, but was probably trying to use it as leverage in the case to get compensation for all of those other dastardly deeds. Alas, that dastardly P. Diddy managed to escape justice this time, but don't worry fellas, we'll get him on the next one. Because I'm pretty sure he's the guy behind climate change. 4. RIAA sues a 12-year-old girl. We've established that the RIAA has no problem going after pirating dead grannies, but this lawsuit proves they're equal opportunity jerks. During the file-sharing fallout of 2004, there were more than 250 piracy cases pending, one of which was against Brianna Lahara. Brianna was 12 years old. It's unlikely she'd saved up enough of her weekly allowance for doing the dishes to pay the hefty price tag of $2,000 that the RIAA was suing for. But in the corporation's own words, they were sending a strong message that the illegal distribution of copyrighted music has consequences. Ooh, chills. Sure, the need for justice to be served is understandable, but shouldn't minors be held to a different standard in these types of cases? When a 12-year-old is caught stealing a candy bar, or even 100 candy bars, whatever, they wouldn't be forced to pay the candy store $2,000, would they? 3. A mother is blown away by Justin Bieber. Not in the good way. When you make the decision to attend a Justin Bieber concert, you make a tacit agreement with yourself and with society that you're willing to have bad things done to your ears. Whatever happens, it's on you. But one mother who took her daughter to a Bieber show did not understand this. After suffering trauma from being, and I quote, hit with a sound blast, she hit the pop star back with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. The rest of her lawsuit reads like an angry Mad Lib, asserting that Bieber created a wave-like effect of screaming by pointing into various sections of the arena, and proceeded to entice the crowd into a frenzy of screams by continuously waving his arms in a quick upward motion. It took the court more than 5 months to realize this lady had no case and dismissed her and her $9 million rant. Mums are the best, but they can also be the frickin' worst. 2. Miley Cyrus sued for making Asian eyes. Miley Cyrus, known for such mild and overblown controversies such as twerking against Robin Thicke at the VMAs and riding a wrecking ball while partially nude for a music video shoot, was embroiled in a non-musical controversy because of a picture she took with some friends when she was 16. The group photo featured Cyrus and 6 other equally dumb teenagers pulling back their eyelids to make the, quote, Asian eyes. The picture also has one Asian teen feigning shock at the ignorance surrounding him. Whereas the rest of us might have simply derided Cyrus for being insensitive and also, just a dumb kid, and then moved on, California resident Lucy J. Kim filed a discrimination lawsuit on behalf of the entire Asian race. Let's relive that last part again. On behalf of the entire Asian race. Because Kim confused making a racist gesture for discrimination, which involves giving favorable treatment or consideration to a particular class of person. The case was eventually dismissed. 1. John Fogerty gets sued for copying his own work. In an unprecedented act of dickery, Fogerty wound up being sued for writing a song that sounded too similar to a song he'd written before. It was the first case of self-plagiarism that had ever been taken to the federal court. Listening to the 1985 The Old Man Down the Road, it's easy to hear the similarities to CCR's Run Through the Jungle, released in 1970. But hey, the guy was the lead singer of CCR and wrote both songs. So what's the big deal, right? Well, due to some bad blood between Fogerty and his former record company, which owned the rights to Run Through the Jungle, he was technically liable for infringing on his own work. If that sounds stupid and unreasonable, that's because it is. Unfortunately, the whole thing was settled out of court, so we don't know how much Fogerty had to pay for the audacity of sounding too much like himself. And there you have it, folks, the 8 dumbest lawsuits in the history of the music industry. Feel free to drop this video a like if you enjoyed it, and drop me a follow on Twitter at @uslydowyu. I'm Will for WhatCulture, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you next time.